My name is Charles A. Teale Sr., and I am the retired chief of the Hartford Fire Department in Hartford, Connecticut. Throughout my 28-year career, I was able to acquire 3 college degrees, receive many awards and several promotions in record-setting fashion. However, things didn't start out that way. Simply stated, I dropped out of high school when I was 14 years old. It was and still is the worst decision of my life. When I was 17, I had a conversation with my 5th grade gym teacher, Walter Doc Hurley Sr. Most people knew him as Doc Hurley. In just one conversation, he made me aware of how important it was to be of service, to be persistent, and to get an education. Armed with that advice, I set out to become academically and professionally successful. The following information is what I learned on that journey. We're at the Hartford Fire Department's Training Academy. It was at this very location that Chief Teale's The Tools of Learning got its start. The Deputy Chief of Training was Raymond McTeague. Chief McTeague was always a no-nonsense kind of man. The first time he addressed our class, he laid down the law. He told us, "I certainly hope some of you left your previous jobs in good terms because you're going back." Then he informed us that we're expected to maintain at least a 70 average or better. If we went below that, we would be dismissed from the program. Just prior to him making his presentation, I looked through the syllabus in our training manual, and there were algebraic equations like gallons per minute equals 29.7 times the diameter squared times the square root of the nozzle pressure. There were also long chemistry definitions that had to be memorized and first aid information to learn. Because I used to chase fire trucks to fires when I was a kid, I thought I knew what a firefighter did for a living. Apparently, I did not. During our first break, I went up to the first recruit I saw outside, Eddie Lopez, and I said to him, "How are you planning to get through this program successfully? Maybe we should get some study groups together so that we can help each other pass training." He then said, "We don't need a study group. I was in the military and they taught us how to remember information." He then went on to describe what they were taught. It included a system of repetition and visualization of information to enhance retention. I combined that with a portion of a system of studying created by Francis Pleasant Robinson called SQ3R and years of my personal learning experiences. So stand by for tool number 17 of Chief Teale's The Tools of Learning. SQ5R stands for Survey, Question, Read, Relevance, Repeat, Review, and Recent. It is this tool more than any other that will assist you in retaining information so that you can solve problems more effectively and efficiently. The word survey means read the objectives at the beginning of each chapter and look over the entire lesson. Also, get a general idea of its content and look at the pictures, drawings, and captions that accompany them. A caption is a group of words that appear next to the pictures and drawings. Its purpose is to explain the picture or drawing next to it. I cannot overemphasize the importance of pictures, drawings, and captions because retaining the information displayed by them is usually beneficial. An author is an expert in his or her field. This person is capable of expressing their thoughts in writing, but they are not usually photographers or artists. Therefore, if they want to put a picture or drawing in their book, they must go through the time and expense of hiring someone to create it. However, they will go through this time and expense because the pictures, drawings, and captions are the author's way of helping you to visualize his or her words and re-emphasizing essential written portions of the publication. Some people are opposed to surveying the information because surveying information takes time. It may take 20 minutes or more to survey the highlighted sections of 30 pages. It is possible to read 4 pages in that amount of time. However, the goal is not to read the information. It is to remember what you read. Surveying the information enhances retention. The word question means to read the questions found in the chapter and write down any questions brought to mind during your survey. Keep them in mind and search for the answers as you read the material. You won't be able to answer them yet, but they will provide you with a set of goals as you read. Although reading is essential, it is too passive an activity to be considered studying. Reading is to studying what stretching is to a sports competition. Once you have read the information, then it is time to study it. With that in mind, the word read means reading the material, taking notes, and highlighting important sections as you read. As you read, you must understand everything. Periodically ask yourself, what is it that I just read? Without the ability to answer this question, you are wasting your time. If the subject you are studying is math, and you are having a particularly difficult time with it, try reading the section you are studying at least twice. The first time through, identify examples of the problem and how the answer appears. Although you may not understand everything you read the first time you read it, you will get a better sense of which portions you must pay close attention to as you read this section a second time. Ships behave the way people should. They have a port, a destination, and a course. Reading through the section the first time without having to understand it helps you to identify the problem, the port, and the form the answer takes, the destination. Now all you have to do is identify the way to arrive at the answer, which is the course. This can be accomplished the second time you read it. How you highlight as you read is a matter of preference. If you prefer to use a pencil instead of a highlighter pen, one means of highlighting consists of hash marks for important sentences, underlining important words and phrases, brackets around important paragraphs, the letters VIP for very important page at the top of the page, an asterisk for essential or difficult to remember information. If the book does not belong to you and you must return it unmarked, highlight by reading the important sections into a recording device. Another way of highlighting when the book does not belong to you is to use sticky notes that point to or flag important sentences. If the paragraph is important, then write the letters HTEOP on the note. HTEOP stands for here to end of paragraph or here to end of page. The word relevance means to relate what you are trying to read to the overall importance of the lesson, the course, the degree program, and even the employment position you are preparing for. If you are relating the information to your employment, you must determine if you are preparing for a job, a career, or a calling. This is necessary because a job is something you do just to make money. Relating the information to a job is important, but not as important as relating it to a career. A career is something you do to distinguish yourself professionally. In a career, you may someday pursue a position of prominence like a supervisor. A calling is entirely different from a job or a career. Your calling is what you feel is the reason why you were born. It's your way of distinguishing yourself among the billions of people on this earth. If you are studying information in preparation for your calling, you must relate to the information in a deeply emotional sense. It is not just a cognitive process or a thinking process, but an effective one that requires deep emotional reflection. Also, under the word relevance, it is very common for a student to ask himself or herself and the teacher, why do I have to learn that? For example, why do I have to learn y equals mx plus b? Where am I ever going to use that in real life? The answers to those questions can best be explained in the following fashion. Y equals mx plus b and all of the seemingly impractical lessons we must learn are part of the ABCs of the subject we are studying. A person can learn how to read without knowing his or her ABCs, but it would take a very long time to do so. Without learning their ABCs, most people who now read very well would never have learned how to read at all. Yet when was the last time you used your ABCs? Except to teach a child, we never think of them consciously. However, subconsciously, we do use our ABCs every time we pronounce a long word that is unfamiliar to us. For example, if we write the word anti-disestablishmentarianism, we can probably sound it out by pronouncing each syllable. To pronounce each syllable, you must know the sound each letter makes. And before you can learn the sound each letter makes, you must know your ABCs. So, we do use our ABCs for more than just teaching a child. The point is this: if you are going to learn the math it takes to someday become an accountant, an auditor, a computer programmer, a doctor, a psychologist, or one of the many other occupations, you must learn the ABCs of math. It is the foundational knowledge we will someday need to learn the practical math of our chosen fields. Other than these things, you should know that no matter what your chosen field is, if it requires a college education, you will have to take a math test prior to being allowed to get into any good college or university. That requires a mastery of problems like y equals mx plus b. The word repeat is the step in which remembering takes place. Although reciting is the mother of all learning, and fun is the father of all learning, repeating is the mother of retention. Repeating should be used when remembering the taxonomy of a subject. The taxonomy of a subject is the foundational knowledge associated with your field of study. If you were studying chemistry, the taxonomy would be the periodic table. If you were studying United States law, the taxonomy would be the United States Constitution. If you want to be respected as a true professional in your field, you must memorize the taxonomy of that field. Repeating the information in the following fashion is the best way to accomplish this. Divide the phrase into smaller groups of words or sentences that make sense. Read the divided phrase to yourself. Archimedes once said, "Give me a lever long enough and a place to stand, and I can move the earth." Well, the tools of learning has a tool more powerful than the lever. It's called visualization. The art of visualization cannot be overstated. It is the most effective learning tool known to humankind. Some of us can recall word for word portions of television shows we saw years ago because we can visualize them. With that in mind, raise your head, close your eyes, and try to visualize each word in the phrase you just read. Reread the phrase to yourself. Raise your head again and say that phrase out loud. Reread the phrase aloud to check yourself for accuracy. When you feel confident with the smaller phrases, consolidate them until you have memorized the entire phrase. Throughout these last steps, you will use as many of your 5 senses as possible to enhance your ability to remember the information. You will see the information. You will hear the information. This is done because the more of the senses that we use while doing anything, the more likely we are to remember it. There is an added benefit to remembering information word for word. It forces us to give precise consideration to the most important expressions related to our field of interest. After retaining these expressions, we improve ourselves because, as Napoleon Hill once said, we become what we think about. Because remembering how to solve math problems requires practice, it is not as beneficial to recite the solutions to problems as it is to simply practice solving the problems repeatedly. The next step of the SQ5R system of learning is the review step. It means to frequently perform reading and reciting of these phrases until it becomes as easy to recall as the ABCs or the Pledge of Allegiance. These things you don't have to practice anymore, but you can recall them because they are in a portion of the brain called the neocortex. The SQ5R system of remembering information makes it possible to more effectively store information in the neocortex. Use a pencil instead of a pen or a marker when highlighting information. That way you can erase the highlight when you have retained the information and no longer have to review it. Also remember to vary your means of review. In addition to your notes, use an audio recording device with the information you want to review on it. Of all of the 5 R's, the recent step is probably the most challenging to gauge. In the recent step, we organize the information so that we can recall it quickly, thereby making the information practical to use. For example, in the fire service, If someone comes to the window of a burning building and yells, "Help, I'm trapped," you don't have an hour or even minutes to figure out which size ladder you need. You've got seconds. Making quick, accurate decisions is possible only if the information we have learned is readily accessible, even during times of great stress. Well, that's all from Chief Teale's The Tools of Learning. Remember, never stop hitting the books.